Hi, I'm John and welcome back to my Lair of Action Figures. Today we're going to be having a look at not one but two different figures. Of course, we're going to be talking about rock and roll. So of course, we do have the new version who's over here, who's the one from the classified retro line. I'm going to be talking about this one because this figure is a very interesting figure, including the Cobra Viper. We'll get into more about it when we're going to go forward and looking at the figures. Then, of course, we have the other figure, who is number 71 in the G.I. Joe line. Of course, these packages, I don't need to explain it to you. I really hate them, not a big fan of it. With QR codes who bring nowhere. There's some kind of little mumbo jumbo on the box there to describe his military competence, and that's about it for this one. And of course, you know I'm a sucker for the ones of the retro line, so of course I'm kind of liking it, but not too much either. I do think there's a few issues going forward with the retro line, and I think Hasbro's lost his way. But anyway, let's have a look. Over here, as you can see, here is his file card, so I will let you put a pause if you want to have a look at it. But the most important thing is this is one of the first figures, including, of course, Dr. Mindbender, who is coming from their new factory in Vietnam. All the previous figures were made in China. So this is the two first figures. So I'm going to be making a video about how Hasbro has been playing this. Oh, we're going to take some time to reorient all the shipping, and this is why we have delays. But except these two figures, all the rest is made in China. So there's no really justification. How come suddenly for nearly 6 months we didn't get any new Joes if they were still coming out of China? I don't know if it's tariffs or whatever. Like I said, do not do politics, and I'm not interested in doing that, but it is weird that this one is the only one. Anyway, let's dive into the history of this guy. So, here is my mint and box rock and roll from back in the days. So, of course, this one over here has the swivel arms, as you can see. So the swivel arms is a 1983 figure. The original figure came out in 1982. He is part of the 13 original ones, as you can see over here. I'm going to leave it and you can do a pause over here. And as you can see, there's a lot of inspiration coming from the original figure. And even if you look also over here, did the same kind of effect over here, because if you look closely here, if I can get it in, you can see that the eyebrows are a different color, so they really did respect it. Now, of course, the figure that came out in 2008, who was the 25th anniversary, I am incapable of finding what did I do with those figures, so I don't know where I have the actual ones I have for sale. Because I've been doing a lot of tidying up, so yeah, I've moved some stuff around, so I do not have the possibility to show it. But there was two versions who came out in 2008. One who was a representation and a pretty well remade version of this one with a gun very similar about it, and then he came with a twin pack where he was put with Deep Six, who was the only time I think that the figure came out. If I'm mistaken, please let me know in the comment section. But I think he was only made once. So yeah, these are the figures. Now let's dive in, of course, and let's have a look at the different figures and let's talk about it. So, of course, I'm going to be starting by the number 71, the figure that came out in 2023. Of course, the other figure is a 2025 figure, and both of them have a suggested retail price of €24.99 or €29.99. Of course, we have the figure, we have his machine gun, we have his pistol, we have two different hands over here, with a nice little add-on. We have a helmet, we have a walkie-talkie, we have his ammo belt, and over here we have a little extra ammo belt who goes on to the M60. Of course, we're going to be having a closer look at the other figure a bit later on, but I did gear him up and put him like this, so I can leave him over here with his two different hands. So, like I said, we're going to be starting by this figure over here. As you can see, the head sculpt is pretty neat, pretty decent. Of course, the fact that they didn't put the eyebrows, change the eyebrows color, is something of pretty neat and something that I highly appreciate, because it does look a bit weird. Of course, he does have some pretty cool tattoos over here. Now again, I understand that, oops, sorry, seems to be a bit losing focus over there. Okay, so it doesn't know what to focus on. Okay, so as you can see, the tattoos over here on both arms, and of course he has them on the hand also. So that is something pretty interesting to have as a new design. I'm really sorry, the focus is not... Okay, here we are. As you can see, they are really pretty well detailed over here, and we do have a lot of... There's nothing much to say about the tattoos, but they are pretty awesome to have on a figure. I think it's a nice little add-on. His uniform is also more respective of what the new uniform looks like. I like the fact that he has a belt pouch. Of course, having the ammo belts is something cool. Over here we have some charges for the pistol. Over here we have the water canteen. Another one over here, we have a hole. That hole goes for the radio. And of course, he is losing his holster over here. So let's put it back up over here. And he has another pouch over here. Something that the retro one doesn't have is armbands over here for the different, to cover a bit the articulation. Now, we're going to go on to the M60. Now, I don't think Hasbro has made this one before. For any other brand, as you can see over here, you have the little clips who are on the box over here, the little ammo, so you should need to put it in, and you have the perfect little fit. Of course, the feet of the M60 move to be put in the firing position, so if you want to have it on the bipods, you can have it. As you can see, so something very interesting to see, as you can see, the one from China does have a lot of bending in it. Now, if we take the one from Vietnam, as you can see, it does bend, but the plastic is a lot harder. So this is something that's pretty neat and improved. Sliding in the ammo belt also is going to be a bit harder, but we have a look at that later on. So you see, there's a few little differences between the figures. Now, of course, we have the helmet over here, who's a pretty... Now, let me try. The helmet with Wagden, of course, because he's a bit of a surfer. We have the pouch for the night vision, but no night vision, so we get the new helmet over here. Of course, we get a walkie-talkie over here with the batteries, who's a nice little add-on, and of course we get the pistol over here, who's a pretty neat little piece. So yeah, pretty nice of what we get. Over here we get, of course, one fist and one little hand making the horns. Like I said, this is more for the heavy metal fans. So of course there's the tattoo on the hand. So as you can see, pretty neat figure. Now moving on to the one from Vietnam, of course we get the famous, how do you call it, plate that you can put it on. So this is the stand over here is pretty neat. And what I decided to do is I decided to go with the hand who is doing the horn symbol. So of course, let's have a look at the figure itself. Now, the first pictures I saw of him, I found them pretty ugly. But if you look, these are exactly the same head sculpts. But just the fact of having him with the darker eyebrows kind of changes a lot the dynamic of these two figures. So I do prefer this one here, but I understand why the retro one went with this kind of design, because yeah, it makes sense. So of course the flesh is also a bit more pinkish on this one, and of course he comes mostly, it is just a simple repaint of the same figure with the original colors. Of course, the ammo belt is changed to the kind of more goldish look of the original figure. This one does not have any tattoos. He has, of course, the radio put over here. And what I did, I should put the little ammo crate over here, as you can see, on the side of the figure, because that's where it goes on to. And, of course, he's going to do some head banging with his fingers up like this. So yeah, he's walking, let's say he is really going full rock and roll. So over here we do have the different hands, and of course we come up with the helmet, who has no marking, but again, pretty simple green paint, dark headphones, and of course the battery over here. Still no night vision over here, but it would make sense because this is of course the retro line. So we have the pistol, of course. I've already shown you over here. This is what I was saying about. It is pretty hard to pull out. So the gun feels more solid in the way it is and feels less bendy than the ones from China. So I don't know if that's something that we are going to see more down the line. It is pretty nice because those bendy weapons can be a bit horrible to move around. So I wanted to show you what I was saying about the ammo belt. You see this one can really slide in. There's no holding back. The other one is a bit stiffer. So yeah, looks like that moving to Vietnam might have been not so bad at the end of the line. So yeah, if we can get some more solid weapons, that's going to be really, really nice of it. And of course, the stuff that should be with every figure, it was the figure stand. I don't understand why they don't do it. Anyway, now that we had a look at this, I'm going to tell you my final thoughts about the figures, and also do I think these items are collectible ones. So, are these figures collectible value, or are they going to be something that you're going to find in sales? Now, regarding this one over here, I would consider this one a bit more valuable and more collectible than this one. Of course, this one only came out and is a 2025 version, so it is 2025, so this one can be still found. This one had a tendency, and the lifespan of this one didn't go on for very long and sold out pretty fast. I mean, especially in Europe, this one really sold out pretty fast, and I did import some. I still have some left for sale from the US, and if you're in Europe and you missed out on this figure, I'll be able to give you a pretty good deal on it. Of course, they're not going to be as cheap as what Hasbro is selling them, because that's impossible. That would be for another video explaining how it's not possible for us to compete as a shop, or me as a former shop would be impossible to compete. But yeah, so for me, this figure does have a lot higher value as a collectible. For now, I haven't seen any of these figures going on sale, so it's a match. But this one kind of had a more lower one production and kind of sold out pretty fast. I know that a lot of people were not happy with the tattoos, so I guess that could be something that could make this figure over here a bit more interesting. So I'm just going to be gearing him up also over here. So you can see, very simple, trick clips in. And this is why I think that the one from 2023 is a lot more interesting and has a better collectible value than the new one. Now, of course, I do like the idea of going with some new designs, and like I said, you can see that the fact of the plastic being softer does have an advantage as putting the helmet on. Now that I've given you my thoughts about it, I'm going to talk about which one do I prefer. Now, I do like this one a lot better than the original one. I'm not saying that the original one I do not like. As you can see, helmet is harder to put in. But the fact that we're getting something a bit new, they tried something out, and that's something I highly appreciate about it. Now, of course, this figure does have some interesting factors, if we can put it as such, because he's part of the original 13, and it looks like we're going to be getting very fast some more of the original figures over here, and that's why we purchased, if you watch my video where I have my mega haul of stuff coming back in, I repurchased a Stalker because I wanted him to be in the original colors, and this makes a lot of sense to have him all geared up and having the original 13 figures. Of course, we're having Colonel Hawk coming soon. They've announced also our friends Steeler, Short Fuse, so there's not many figures missing except Zap, Flash, and Grand Slam. from the original line. Most of the other ones have been announced or have came out. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to get these figures. But like I said, I do have a little bit tendency of preference for this one over here. And I was telling you at the beginning of the video, I have a huge issue with the retro line in the way that they're going. Now, I can understand you did not want to remake the gun. I understand that you want to save some money, but of course we're talking about two different machine guns over here. As you can see, I mean, the 25th anniversary line figure did do a correction and made the weapon who looked more similar to this one over here, and of course this one didn't do it. Now, another big reproach that I have on it, when Lenny was talking about the retro lines, he was saying that some items are going to be classic retro fitted stuff, and it's going to be the fist. But over here we get only one fist. So why not give us two fists? These fists are the same on most of the figures. They haven't done any different shape. So we should have two fists, and maybe one, they could have thrown this hand in as extra, but where is the fist? This is something that does not make sense at all on it. The fact of going for this kind of helmet, when you see what you did with Retro Duke, I don't feel the retro line vibe anymore about it. I should see a cheap repaint of this figure over here and not really finding the retro figure. I can understand that you could have left the belt, or should even maybe you could have kept these little pouches, because he does have these pouches. But I mean, why give us this helmet? You have this helmet over here, the newer version that you give with Duke, and you're going to be giving it with Steeler and all of that. So why not use the old original figure? It's the same thing with what you did with CoverGirl. CoverGirl is built up as a retro figure. She never came out in that way, and she was definitely not blonde in the figures. The same goes for the retro figures that are coming out, who are the green shirts. Green shirts never came out in the original line of G.I. Joe Real American Hero. So again, I don't understand why for you're putting them in the retro. I could understand why you would put maybe CoverGirl with the blonde hair, but put her like you did with Breakup, make her a mass device. I think retro's been spoiled by the fact of you're not going in. You had a plan, you changed the plan, you're starting to move around, and this is why for I think the retro line is suffering poorly on it, because you are doing cheap repaint, trying to mix match stuff to recreate something that it was, and then throwing a bunch of figures who have nothing to do with the retro line. And you could have also used the green shirts and the CoverGirl figure and put them as the mass device. I don't understand why for you're doing it. For me, you've been changing some of the images. I don't have Flint, but the Flint artwork is horrible on it. So I hope that Hasbro's going to course correct the retro line and go back to what it's supposed to be, more looking like these figures. So now that I've got my rant out about these problems or these issues that I have with the retro line, I'm going to be giving you a note out of 10. Now, this figure over here, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, due to the fact that he does have a missing knife. It would have been nice to have it. And if you're going to put the batteries for the night vision, you could have included the night vision on top of it, so that's not going to be much of an issue. Now, if we're talking about this one over here, the retro line, I'm going to be giving it 8 out of 10. The fact that I'm giving it only an 8 out of 10, it's because, like I said, there's a lot of items who are not compatible with what we should be expecting from the retro line. Anyway, so that's going to be it for the reviews of the Rock and Roll figures from the G.I. Joe Classified series. If you like this kind of videos, please leave a like, share, comment in the section. If you have any suggestions that you want me to do any other videos, leave them also in the comment section. You can go and check out my Facebook page to go and see some cool pictures, also Instagram. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!